Just bring up that. Jane, welcome to the Astroben podcast. How are you?
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me on. This is exciting.
No, I'm excited to chat to you. I've been following Space Perspective for a while now. So for those listeners who may not have heard of Space Perspective, what is it?
So we really wanted to reimagine spaceflight for people who perhaps either couldn't imagine themselves or don't want to or can't go on a rocket to space, right? We want to throw open the doors to as many people as possible to having that quintessential astronaut experience of seeing Earth in space. And so my co-founder and I, Tabor McCallum, have Space Perspective that is taking people to space using space balloons. So there are these enormous balloons that are basically the size of a football stadium that very gently go to space at 12 miles an hour. So it's this incredibly gentle flight to space and back. The initial flights are going to be 6 hours long. It takes you 2 hours to get up, 2 hours at the top, about 2 hours back down. So the whole thing is this seamless, gentle flight that really allows people to step into our universe of going to space who otherwise perhaps could never have imagined themselves doing so.
It's such a good idea because I think for a lot of people they would love to look down on the Earth, see the curvature of the Earth, but it's that brutal launch experience and feeling the G's and would put a lot of people off. So I think you've identified a fantastic gap in the market. Is it safer than companies like SpaceX, Blue Origin, Virgin Galactic? Apart from the launch, is the actual experience safer overall, do you think?
So I would say that rocket flight has come a long way, right? I mean, it just has. So I would never say that that's unsafe. What we are focused on, though, is making it as absolutely bulletproof safe. So there's so many parts to that. So first of all, let's talk about the space balloon itself. So this is the kind of balloon that has been flown by NASA, other governments, even members of our team over 1,000 times. It's a very well understood technology that has a really good safety record. So then the capsule itself, it's a simple space capsule. It is a space capsule, but it is pretty simple. It doesn't have to deal with all the vibe and all that has to be withstood by a normal spacecraft as we think of it, right? Because we're in this very gentle regime. So even the gentleness of the flight helps with the safety aspect of the flight. Then in
Mm.
between the capsule and the balloon is a parachute system we call the reserve descent system. That again is a type of parachute system, kind of like the thing you would see when Crew Dragon comes in. Those type of parachutes that again have been used over 1,000 times from space in a much more dynamic environment than we're using them, and also from these altitudes. So, and by the way, that system has never failed. And unlike any other spacecraft out there, our capsule, where the humans reside during the entire flight, it is connected continuously to the primary flight system. So you go up
Mm.
under the balloon and you come back down onto the balloon. So not only is it going to be this like super seamless experience, it also means you've eliminated all that complexity of having to change from one flight system to another. So everywhere you can simplify a system also, seems to eliminate risk, right? So for that and many other reasons, it's a really safe system.
That does sound safe. And do the passengers and crew have personal parachutes? I mean, I think of it always kind of amazed me that regular hot air balloons, I don't think people have parachutes normally when they go on experiences. Is that something that you do?
So we don't, because we have all the backup systems on the capsule itself, right? We don't want to have our customers having to deal with that kind of thing. I think
Yeah.
that's probably not safe. What is safe is that remember, the parachute system is always in reserve. So under a nominal flight, you would never use it. And we can get back down from space down to a fully breathable atmosphere very quickly in just a couple of short minutes.
Wow, that's super cool. So the idea is that people can concentrate on taking pictures, mingling, drinking champagne, and have a smooth ride. Is it when you say smooth, is it a sense that you could stand up for the whole ascent, or are there various stages of smoothness?
No, it's going to be smooth the whole way, right? So, I think it's sort of difficult to imagine because we're used to being in an airplane, for example. But an airplane is going through the air quickly. And so you hit pockets of turbulence and things like that. We're going with the air, again, at 12 miles an hour, right? We're going at cycling speed. And so it is incredibly smooth. So you will be in your seat strapped in for about the first 15 minutes and the last 15 minutes. But other than that, you're going to be able to get up and walk around the space lounge, as we call it, right? So that's another part of reimagining this whole spaceflight experience is, rather than have it sort of echo the right stuff, that white, futuristic, stark interior, we really wanted it to feel incredibly inviting to people. So it's a space lounge. And another part of that is that almost 50% of our capsules have been bought as full capsules, right? Full flights. People want to go with their loved ones, their families, their friends, their colleagues. So this is a shared experience. So this was a huge insight for us that we wanted the interior of the capsule to echo that shared experience. And so the space lounge is exactly that, where people are in these two semicircle of seats where they can share the experience with each other. They can relax, hang out. People want to hang out in space together, right? I mean, it's just this sort of very different view of what space experience is. And that was another really critical part of how we have reimagined the whole experience for people and making it accessible to an increasing number of people.
Absolutely. And there's a bar on board. So how does that work? Do you have a mixologist or a bartender that comes on every flight, or is there a job sharing aspect of with the other crew?
So there is one crew member on board. And it's not, so it is a pilot, so they can control the vehicle themselves, but the co-pilot is on the ground, and frankly, the vehicle can fly itself. So the pilot really doesn't have a whole lot of piloting to do during the flight. So the primary role of that person is going to be a guide throughout this entire experience for people, and that will take on helping people understand what's going on outside the vehicle. Where are we in the whole flight? I think that there's going to be a lot of interaction with the pilot, and of course the bar is a pretty important component of this. So we're going to be asking people what they think they want to drink and also eat during the entire 6-hour experience before they go. Make sure it's available for them.
So cool. And I guess they have to be quite because there might be some people that have the experience and just freak out, because it is longer. You could make the argument that other suborbital experiences, they're only 15 minutes. You can kind of, if you started freaking out, you're sort of strapped in and it's over before you know it. So I guess for a 6-hour duration, that crew member may have to deal with people who are freaking out because it's not what they expected, and a different sense of vertigo kicks in. So yeah, it's super interesting.
We're putting a lot of thought into how to prepare people to go, right? So there's many aspects to that. One is, making sure, honestly, before they go, there's nothing hidden like claustrophobia that they didn't even know about, right? This is a very roomy capsule. Let me say that first of all, right? It's this 16-foot diameter sphere that you're in. So it's going to feel very roomy. But But regardless, we need to make sure that people are really comfortable. So we're going to have people in the capsule for periods of time before they go up. We're going to have a lot of yet to be developed in detail, but there's numerous aspects. While there's no training, we want people to be prepared. And some of that, honestly, is going to be preparing people for this incredible experience that astronauts talk about of seeing Earth in space, right? I mean, astronauts talk about it in such reverent terms, this experience, what Frank White calls the overview effect, we call the space perspective. It's a hugely powerful experience for most astronauts, if not all astronauts. And we think, hope, expect that it will be an incredibly powerful experience for at least some of our customers. Certainly, some of our customers will go to space having a great time drinking champagne at the edge of space, and that's awesome, right? But I do think that there will be some people who go who just have their minds blown. And of course, I can somewhat speak from experience because of my time in Biosphere 2. It turns out to be a very analogous sort of transformational change in perspective. So back in the 80s, I was lucky enough to be on the design team. And then in the early 90s, Tabor, my co-CEO, and I were on the first crew to live inside the world's first human-made biosphere. Biosphere 1 being planet Earth, Biosphere 2 being the one that we lived in for 2 years and 20 minutes. And it had has still today, a miniature rainforest, savanna, ocean, marsh, desert, and then the human habitat where we lived in the area where we grew our food. What was astounding from an experiential point of view was having that visceral experience of being part of a biosphere. We could see the edges of our small world. I knew moment by moment where the oxygen was coming from, that as I breathed out my CO2, it was going into the plants around me that I was then eating. So it was a very profound experience, and it really did make me see our planetary biosphere from a much broader context, from a perspective that I would never have had otherwise. I think it's an intellectual leap for us to think about the fact that we live in a planetary biosphere, perhaps becoming less and less of a leap as we have experienced the pandemic, for example, in the last couple of years. But still, that experience turns out to be very akin to the one that astronauts have when they see our planet from the outside and they see the edges of our world. And I mean, it is truly life-changing for many of them. And so as we think about preparing our customers to go to space, we want to have them give them the opportunity to learn about that experience and then really make the most of it when they're up there.
That's fascinating. So you mentioned the Biosphere 2 mission. What did you learn about yourself during that, and how has that sort of impacted your vision for space perspective? You sort of touched on it a little bit.
It completely laid the groundwork for what we're doing now. So I went into the biosphere thinking it was the closest I was ever going to get to going to Mars, but do so right here on planet Earth. Right? I had grown up reading Isaac Asimov, under my blankets at night with a torch. Right? I mean, has totally been bitten by, this sort of futuristic vision of humanity flitting among the stars. And so when I went into the biosphere, that was my vision. I was like, oh, I'm going to go into the biosphere. I'm going to experience firsthand what it is to be in a prototype space base, do so right here on Earth. What I did not expect was that I would not only grow that conviction of wanting to have us all go to space one day, have that ability to all go to space one day, was that I was also going to, in the same way that astronauts do, kind of turn around and get this deep connection to Earth. I didn't expect that. I really hadn't been, somebody who thought deeply about our planet, our singular human family up until that moment, and I suddenly became so. And have ever since. Once you experience it, you can't unexperience it. And so ever since, I've been deeply involved in sort of sustainability and that kind of thing for my entire career in one way or another. So it was a very profound experience. And it was that really made Tabor and I want to give, as many people as possible the experience of seeing Earth in space.
That's great. And your first vessel is called Spaceship Neptune.
Yes.
And that is the world's only carbon neutral spaceship. So it sounds like your passion for sustainability has sort of impacted your company's mission statement. How important is the sustainability side for the marketability of Space Perspective?
Well, so look, I think as a business, for us, it's central to who we are. It's central to our brand DNA, if you will. I believe that if we're taking people up to space to have this extraordinary experience of sort of bonding with our planet, if you will, we as a business need to behave as members of our planetary society, right? So that means we have to take responsibility for our own carbon footprint. So that's what we're doing. I think it's incredibly important that we walk the talk. And as a human being, as a member of our planetary biosphere, I believe that individually as well. So both on a personal level and a business level, I think it's really important.
Yeah, you're definitely going to be a sustainability leader in the space tourism space, if you will. So the big question: when is the first launch, and will that be a crewed mission?
So we did our first test flight last year. In June of last year, and that was with a simulated capsule. We did the entire flight profile. We launched from right outside of Kennedy Space Center on Cape Canaveral at the SpaceGo spaceport. Flew up to altitude, flew across the peninsula, and splashed in the Gulf of Mexico. And one of the critical things we really wanted to demonstrate for ourselves and validate and test is our ability to put our retrieval ship right at the splashdown location, like right there. And our goal was to be on this very first flight to be within a kilometer of the splashdown location. I mean, we're 800 meters, so it was absolutely perfect. So that's great. So we're in the process of building our capsule right now. And we will have that done within the next few months. And we plan to fly that early next year in around the end of Q1. So we're going to get back into uncrewed testing. That'll be another uncrewed type flight. Getting into human flights around the end of 23, and then getting to commercial operations around the end of 24. We were talking about safety earlier, and what's amazing for us is that we can fly this vehicle autonomously, which means that we get to put Spaceship Neptune through the kinds of flight testing you probably wouldn't want to do with a human on board, just so that we can really test all the corner cases, do things that, would make all our hair stand on end if we were on board, but know that our backup systems work when we really push them to the extreme. And so that's really exciting. That's a way that we really get to test the system, make it incredibly safe. It's what Elon and Gwynner have been able to do at SpaceX with Crew Dragon, and of course, first it was Dragon without the crew, and now it's Crew Dragon. So similar kind of process.
Epic, so exciting. I'm just intrigued because I don't know a huge amount about balloons, but I always assumed that there was only so much control you could have on where they go, and you kind of rely on winds and air currents, for want of a better term. Do they have propulsion? Like, how can it land 800 meters away from your target? Because
that's because our ability now, humanity's ability to understand what's happening with our weather systems, our wind. For us, it's wind, of course, is of most import at every level, all the way up into well beyond where we fly, is astoundingly good now, and we can predict several days in advance with a fair degree of accuracy where it's going to splash. And then, of course, as we get closer, that accuracy gets higher and higher where we're going to splash. And then we update it during the flight as well. So in essence, we have our landing location comes to us. But it's just largely because there has just been so much advance made in weather forecasting. I mean, it's an incredible how accurate a lot of this is now. And especially with the winds, we're able to take advantage of that. And then we sort of input it into our algorithms with a bunch of other data that come in from all around the world, various different models, and ends up with a really accurate system for us to project where we're going to land.
That's awesome. And to finish that smooth ride, you want to land at sea as much as possible, just for that smoother touchdown.
Yes, because it's really smooth. Again, you're not having to transition to another kind of flight system like parachutes. You know, I kind of feel if you've got a really good, fully functional primary flight system, why would you want to have to get rid of it mid-flight? So splashing in the ocean eliminates all of that. And it also, as you said, allows for a very gentle landing, splash down. So if you look at the images of our capsule, you'll notice that there is a cone on the bottom. And actually, we've run thousands of simulations and analyses of that splash cone to really optimize that splash attenuation. So that's super exciting. We'll be really fully testing that out as well on our upcoming flights.
That is super exciting. So what's your long-term aspirations for Space Perspective? Do you see hundreds of balloons going up at one time?
Yes, exactly. So, there's long-term and then there's long-term. So I think, we're really focused at the moment on getting ourselves to commercial operations as quickly as we can. And then we're going to start our operations from the US and the peninsula of Florida, which is pretty awesome. The view from there is going to be astounding. People are going to be able to see, maybe even launch from Kennedy Space Center. So they get to really kind of embed themselves in the history of human spaceflight, which is just crazy. Then they'll be able to see out over the Bahamas and, out across the Keys. So that's sort of the first place that we'll be launching from. And then very quickly, we're going to want to have operations in different locations around the world. One of the places I really want us to be able to fly from is where we can see the Aurora Borealis. I mean, imagine seeing that from up there. Oh,
amazing.
It would just be crazy.
Amazing. And that would be great, because I think as a UK citizen, you're obviously originally from the UK as well, but there's sometimes the feeling that it's so unobtainable to go to space. There's a lot of competitions now to win a ticket to space, and they normally exclude non-US citizens, which so it's great to know that there is a vision for different companies to be launching from Europe and all around the world, so that everyone has the opportunity to win a ticket.
So we are very excited about, not only is our team multinational now, which is kind of really exciting, we also want to fly people of very diverse backgrounds. So that's, artists, musicians, poets, world leaders, right? I mean, I think being able to fly people who come from very different backgrounds, different cultural backgrounds, different ways of experiencing this, and then different ways of communicating this experience is going to be, as you said earlier, epic. It really is. I mean, yeah. I do think that having a lot of people go to space and having this experience of that astronauts talk about of seeing Earth in space and all that comes from that is going to have a ripple effect across society. I mean, when astronauts go to space, they tend to come back and get more involved in environmental and social causes than before they left. So that there's a really marked change in behavior, not just perspective. And so that will have an effect across society as more and more people go.
No, that's really good to hear. And I think there's something really compelling and exciting about people from different continents, different nations being able to float up and see their country from 30 kilometers or however high you go. There's definitely something magical and special about that. So I was just looking at your previous experience. You've obviously worked with, balloons and technology, in various different guises over the years. How has that experience of working with different companies, how has that sort of shaped what you're doing differently from space perspective?
Really, what we're doing at Space Perspective is the culmination of all of that, right? So it was Biosphere 2, then Paragon Space Development Corporation that now has technologies on just about every human space vehicle in operation in America today, which is super exciting. Grant Anderson, our co-founder, is doing an amazing job running it. And then we were lucky enough to do StratX, which was a project that we did with Alan Eustace, then a Google executive, to break the Red Bull Stratos jump record. And which we did 2 years later. You wouldn't necessarily have heard about it because as a Google executive at the time and with a family, they really didn't want press. So if it's not in the press, it didn't happen. So we had one New York Times reporter at the record jump, but that was amazing, right? I mean, we took him up under a space balloon in a spacesuit that our team at Paragon had designed and built, and it was the first new spacesuit designed, built, and operated in America in 40 years, which is crazy to think about. And we did that in 3 years. And it was astounding, and really happy to say that Alan Eustace now serves on our board here at Space Perspective. So, all of these things, of course, came with many, many lessons all along the way. But it is all about the team. The thing that I can say is the common thread through everything, it's all about the team. I mean, really, and it's not just it is having the smartest and the most capable people at that project that you're doing, but it's also having good people, having people that really are aligned with your mission, that really put the mission first. And that's really critical. We're very much a mission first company. And I think I can speak for almost everyone in the company when I say that we're all very, very excited and driven by the idea of giving as many people as possible this experience of going to space.
Yeah, I feel it. Space Perspective, there seems to be a sort of energy about it. You hear of all these sort of space tech startups, and I don't know. It seems like this is going to be big. So one of the big questions is, will you go on one of those early test flights? Do you want to? Is it important to quality test it like Branson and Bezos did to prove that it's safe enough for the CEOs to go on a flight? Is that something that's crossed your mind?
What do you think then? You think I'm going to go through all of this and not go? Of course I'm going. I mean, listen to me. I just go on and on about how amazing this is going to be. Oh, yeah. Of course. I mean, I am falling on the sword for everybody just, to go quality test it, make sure it's good. Joking apart, I can't wait to go. I mean, seriously. Yes, absolutely.
Good. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. The only other question, the only other question I had, which I'm sure is the one you've been asked hundreds of times by, especially any kids that ask questions, but is there a toilet on board? Because you're there for 6 hours.
Of course.
Okay.
Oh, if you're going to have a bar and you're on board for 6 hours, you better have a toilet on board, and it is going to have the best view in the world, right? One of those big windows is right in the loo. So, oh yeah.
Wow, that will be the best toilet in the world. best in the solar system. Let's go there.
Yeah, I'm with
you. Well, look, I'm sure we'll speak to you again, and best of luck with everything for the future. If people want to buy a ticket and they've got a bit of money lying around. Is it possible? Can you still buy tickets for this 6 hour epic
Yeah, so
experience?
you can so we have sold a bunch of tickets, but you can still go on our website. I love it. You can now buy a ticket to space from the internet. Right now, we only ask for a refundable deposit, and you go to spaceperspective.com, book your space flight, and just pay $1,000 for a deposit to go to space.
Well, I could probably get the deposit together, but I'm not sure about the rest of it yet. But it's great, and
There's
like
some
all these,
time, Ben. There's some time.
exactly like all these things, it's like like jets when they first started flying. The price will come down, and eventually anyone will be able to go. Um, so it's super exciting, and thank you so much for your time. You're an inspiration, and I can't wait to hear more.
Thank you.